Let me put you on game. Don't listen to people who lose or you'll do the same. Stop talking to people who don't give a f*** what you saying. Stop spending your money on weed, go hop on a plane. Stop pointing the finger.
Welcome back to another episode of the Pursuit of Wealth podcast. Today we have an amazing guest with us. It's Stephanie Brackett. She is the VP of Operations for DRO Investments, and she's also a coach with Ops Boss Coaching. You maintain like 18 clients right now, and you teach them how to be an ops boss.
That's right.
How to crush it with their operations.
That's right.
So we're excited to kind of get to know your story, how you got to where you're at. I know you've built and helped scale a bunch of companies. And this podcast is really for business owners and entrepreneurs that are looking to grow and looking to scale. So I'm sure we can get some great snippets from you.
Awesome.
So did you grow up here in Idaho Falls?
I did
locally?
not. I'm a California girl.
California girl.
Yeah,
okay.
I came to Idaho before it was cool to come to Idaho, though.
Yeah,
I've been here
now
since
it's popular. Okay, so you're like, before anybody else knew about it.
Before anybody else knew about it, I came here, yeah. So I grew up, I moved a bunch of times up until I was 14, and then when I was 14, we moved to California. And so I went all of high school, and I lived in California until I was 29.
Okay.
And then we did a brief stint in Vegas, back to California, back to Vegas, and then here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So you grew up in California.
Yep.
Went to school there. How was high school? How was growing up in California?
Crazy.
Yeah.
It was
a lot different.
It's
than
not
here.
as bad as it is now, but it was a little bit crazy. I mean, I think my graduating class in high school had like 3,500. My high school had 3,500 students. So my graduating class was like 900. So big high school. I was in Silicon Valley.
Okay.
So like my husband is from there as well. He was there his whole life. As a kid in grade school, if your dad didn't work for IBM, you were kind of weird.
Yeah.
Because that's where everybody worked.
Yeah.
It was all very Silicon Valley related.
It's interesting how they're like we don't really have, I guess our biggest employer is INL. So it's like you kind of have that hub here.
Yep.
But other areas, like you have real like big neighborhoods of everybody works for those companies.
Same people.
Yeah. Which is, we don't see that a ton here.
Nope.
But what took you, so after high school, did you go to college anywhere?
I started going to college. It was one of those things where my parents are like, you either need to go to college or move out, but you got to pay for your own college. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll go to college, but now I have to get a job in order to pay for college. So I got hired at Home Depot, believe it or not.
Okay.
I spent about a month in the phone room as a phone operator. Most people get hired as a cashier. They put them up front.
Yeah.
They hired me as a phone operator. So I was the one answering the phone, lumber department 851. Yeah. So I did all the markdowns and did kind of bookkeeping for them in the back. And after a month, they asked me to be the head cashier, to run the front end. And I was 18 years old. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I can.
Yeah.
So I did that for about 9 months. And then they promoted me to the computer room. So that's kind of what got me into like real operations.
Okay.
And then I got promoted about 15 times in the 15 years I worked for Home Depot. I was out of a store within about a year and a half. I was an information services coordinator for a while. So I was training all the stores in my area. I covered about 15 stores on the systems. I trained them on the systems. And then I was a vice president assistant, a district manager assistant. And then they promoted me and moved me to Southern California for a year. I was an administrator, and I created a whole new department. All the district manager assistants had been on the whole West Coast. They'd been with their district manager in the different offices.
Okay.
So like Vegas had one. Southern California had like 6 different districts, Northern. And they decided to bring all of them in-house into the divisional office. And I was the administrator over that department. So we standardized everything, made it super efficient, created one reporting structure.
Wow. So your job at 18 that was kind of just like a job to get you through college turned into a 15-year stint with them.
15-year stint, yeah. And it was very lucrative, believe it or not. Back in the day, the reason I finally left is because the stocks actually plummeted. But they gave you stock options. I was making probably $250,000 a year in salary and stock options for this company, because they issue options at like $20. But then you could sell them after a year, and the stock had split and split and split so many times, you're selling like 92-cent shares for $80 a share.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really cool.
That's cool. Yeah. How did you, why do you think you scaled so quickly with them? Like compared to other employees? Because most people that would work at a job like Home Depot would start out as a cashier and then maybe work up and then maybe manage a store. But
head or,
and that's a 20-year stint. Like I know people that have been there for 20 years and are just not even there. What do you think made it different for you, especially at 18, being young, for them to see that in you?
Yeah, probably just because I'm a super hard worker. Like
Yeah.
I believe in giving 150% every day. If you ask my kids, I mean, you know Haley.
Yeah.
You ask her, she thought when we lived in Vegas that I worked at the airport.
Oh,
like,
wow.
literally, she's like, "Hey, mommy, there's your work." Because I was at that
travel.
point when we lived there, I was installing computer systems in new stores.
Oh.
So I was gone all the time, and so that's where my kids thought I worked. So I just a freaking hard worker.
That's so cool. So you apparently just stopped college, right? Did you?
Yep, just dropped out. Yep. I was like, well, I'm making this kind of money. Who needs college?
Yeah. You're like, why would I go and pay for it when I can just do this?
Yeah.
So did you think that was like your long-term play, or what was your vision kind of scaling through there?
During the time I was at Home Depot, so like at the end when they moved me to Southern California, my husband and I had always wanted to start a business. We kind of had an entrepreneurial itch, right?
Yeah,
We always wanted to start a business. And so, funny story, I was into scrapbooking. That was a big thing back in 2003, right? That was the cool thing to do. It's so lame now. And I was buying paper, and my husband's like, you got to figure out a better way to buy paper. You're spending like $5,000 a year on paper. So he's like, get a wholesale license and buy paper cheaper. And I'm like, okay. So I got a wholesale license. Well, of course, when you buy wholesale, you got to buy bulk.
Yep.
So I'm buying packs of 50 paper, and I need like 4 sheets. I don't need 50 sheets. So I'm like, I'm going to sell this on eBay. So we packaged up these packs and put them on eBay, gone instantly. And then I got people messaging me, do you have more? Do you have more? Do you have more? And I'm like, okay, I'll order $1,000 worth of paper, sell it for $3,000. So I just kept doing that. And he's like, we got to find a better way to do this. I'm like, let's open an online scrapbook store.
Wow.
So we got our product, got this website built all within a month.
Wow.
One of our eBay customers got the link. We told them, hey, we're opening up a store. It'll be open in a week. She got the link. We hadn't flipped it live. We didn't think.
Wow.
You remember that commercial that was like orders, and they're like looking at their order ticker, and they're like, oh, hopefully there'll be
Somebody's
orders. And then all of a sudden it's just like, that happened to us.
Really?
My husband had to drive to Arizona to get more product because we did not have enough for all the orders that were flowing in.
That's insane.
Yeah, crazy, right?
So that just started off as like a little side hustle.
Total side gig. And we ran that from 2003, and we sold that business in 2007 because we knew the market was going to crash. We moved here. That was our only source of income when we moved to Idaho in 2004.
Really?
We both quit our jobs, moved to Idaho, had the scrapbook store. It's back in you remember the no doc loan days?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The bank's like, how much money you make? We're like, this much. Like, great, buy whatever house you want. Never asked. If you have W-2s, we don't want to see them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we moved here, and that's what we did until 2007 when we sold that store. But we knew the writing was on the wall. The market was starting to crash, and no one's going to spend disposable income on scrapbook supplies when they can't afford their house payment.
For sure. So that's very...
bailed on that.
Yeah, it was smart. It was a smart move.
Yeah.
So you spent 15 years with Home Depot, growing to the high level with them.
Yeah.
Making good money.
Yep.
Were you scared when you transitioned, or what caused that? What kind of money were you making with that scrapbooking that made you feel confident?
Our annual sales were about $300,000, and we're making probably 60% profit on it. So
So you're like,
it wasn't a bad income.
Yeah. So you're like, you had a safety net that you felt was good to jump on.
And back then, as a new business owner and new entrepreneur, and I know a lot of real estate agents have the same problem. I've talked to them. We never had a cash flow issue. The profitability might have been as good at times, but the cash was always there.
Yeah.
Right. We just had cash coming in constantly.
Yep.
So when you stop selling and the market starts going, that's when you realize you've got a profitability issue because the cash flow dries up and boom, you're out of money.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
But, yeah.
So you quit your jobs living in Vegas. Why Idaho? Why did you guys choose to move here?
Dart and a map. No, I'm just
really.
kidding.
That's impressive.
No, my husband one day he's like, we got to get out of here. So we had lived in Vegas. We had moved to Southern California for that promotion of mine for administrator with Home Depot. After I told him I'd give him a year. I'm like, I'll give you guys a year. I don't like want to live. I mean, I loved Irvine. It was beautiful, but we were paying $3,000 a month to rent a house that was built in 1968 with popcorn ceilings, right? It was very expensive, and you couldn't buy anything. Yeah. So I'm like, I can't. And I had a beautiful house in Vegas that I left with a pool and a golf course view. I was like, ugh. So I told them, hey, I can give you a year. So I transferred back. They moved me back and everything. I transferred back to Vegas. For that little bit of time, I was what they called a competitive battle plan manager. So I went and shopped the competition and then figured out what do we need to do to make sure that we're beating Lowe's and we're beating. So administration in Southern California found out about that because it was kind of a fluff job. It wasn't really. And they're like, you need to put her in a store. So I was an operations manager for a $60 million a year store for the last 6 months of my career with Home Depot. And that's when the stock prices, for the first time in forever, they didn't make earnings. This was back in the day where you had to call in to get what stock prices were. You know, you didn't have it on your computer.
Just couldn't pull it up on Robinhood.
Yeah. So I do it every morning and I'd call in and it would say, currently the Home Depot is trading at blah, blah, blah. Well, it had been like $53, $57, $54, $52. I called one morning and they're like, the Home Depot stock is trading at $36. And I'm like, they said 56, right? And Dave goes, I think they said 36. And I'm like, oh my gosh, hang up, call back. It had dropped 25 points in a day. And I'm like, I got to get
What had caused that?
They missed earnings.
Oh,
the first quarter they'd ever missed earnings in the history of Home Depot.
That's crazy.
So it plummeted. And at that point, most of my really cheap options had been cashed out. So now I have shares that I own at $47 that I can sell for $36. And so I'm like, okay, we can go.
Yeah.
So when we moved back to Vegas the second time, we hated it there. We loved it the first time.
Yeah.
We were it was 7 miles to the Colossus grocery store. It felt like a small town. We were way out there.
Yeah.
But the growth there was absolutely explosive.
Crazy. Yeah.
And so what was a 2-lane road to and from work was a 6-lane when I got back.
Yeah.
And just the schools weren't great. My kids had been in private school and we went back and we were going to do public and it was horrible. And so my husband's like, we got to get out of here. And I'm like, okay, where do you want to go? And he's like, not here, but not California. Let's find a good place to raise a family.
Yeah.
And we had some friends that had moved to Idaho and they had come back and they were talking about it. And they're like, kids have chores there. They actually have to do work to earn money. And I'm like, what? My kids have never cleaned their room.
You're like, this sounds like a great place.
Yeah. And so we were like, let's try it. We drove up one weekend, bought a house up in Camar-Loma on Skidmore Drive.
Wow.
Drove back home, put our house on the market and sold it.
That's crazy. I mean, good for you guys to have that, just say, hey, we're picking up, we're moving. And having the confidence that you're going to just figure it out. Yeah,
we'll figure it out.
You've been successful up to this point, so why wouldn't you, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I was waiting on my bonus. The way Home Depot does bonuses, I don't know if they still do it this way. It's pretty cool. The store managers got a 50% bonus at the end of the year if they made their goals.
Hit their metrics.
And the operations managers and the assistant managers got a 25% bonus.
Wow.
So and they pay it out in April. So I waited, got my $40,000 check, and then said, see you later, and quit.
How was it? I mean, working for a big corporation like that, how was it being employed? Because you've worked with a lot of small companies now and helped scaling them. How was it working for a corporation that size?
It's good and bad.
Yeah.
So the difference in small businesses and big business, I'm actually coaching a guy right now who's from corporate and now he's working in a small business and the transition's been really hard for him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you got to understand that you got to make decisions in an entrepreneurial small business. You got to make fast decisions. Mm-hmm. You can't turn a 2,000 store company on a dime.
No.
You can turn a 5-employee company on a dime and you have to. You have to be able to shift fast.
That's your only advantage to the big corporations. You can pivot.
Yep. And if you need anything in a corporation, it's there. It's in your operations manual or it's been created. You just go get it. If you need something in an entrepreneurial business, it's up to you to create it. You got to figure out how to do it. Yep. And so I think being in that huge corporation gave me awesome insights into the difference and owning my own business. I was able to see, well, crap, I got to create an invoice template for my QuickBooks invoices to invoice clients. Yep. Normally I'd just be like, hey, where's the template? Yeah. And so I think it just gave me a really good insight into the good and bad of both. And there definitely is.
I think absolutely. And so many people have that entrepreneurial itch that they want to be an entrepreneur. And a lot of people don't realize how much work goes into starting a business. Because you're right. When you're starting a business that's yours, you have to start literally everything.
Everything from scratch.
From scratch.
Or you can rip off and duplicate.
You can. Yeah. Right? Which is a great strategy. But even that, you got to do the research.
But every business is different.
Yeah. And you got to do the research on what are you going to replicate and who are you going to replicate and why? And what's going to set you apart from that company?
Yeah.
So there's so much that goes into it. And that's why I think your role in any business is so important. And a lot of people lack that operations role.
Yeah. So they don't get it. They don't get systems. They call me the systems queen. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah.
That's my nickname.
That's what I've heard.
I got a system for creating systems. And I really got that. Honestly, it started at Home Depot.
Really?
I I don't want to brag.
Yeah.
But back in the day, the scheduling system for Home Depot was crap.
Yeah.
Right? It was a paper schedule.
Like scheduling for employees?
Employees,
okay.
yep. Right? So you wrote everybody down on a schedule and you're trying to mix like customer traffic with schedules. When do we need more people? When do we need less? Well, and the whole time you're down stocking product while customers are in the store. So Bruce Leviton was a district manager and I worked with him. We created the scheduling system that they actually rolled company-wide to the entire company.
Wow.
Where it really allowed us to say, okay, we need these people here at this time, but this is what they're doing. We're going to get a 5 a.m. shift, and from 5 to 9, those people are just the downstocking crew. They're just filling the shelves and making sure the shelves are full. Then we need someone at 7 because we open at 7:30. They're going to be servicing customers, and that's their job. And this is how many we need for a department. And we really made it very specific scheduling, not just, hey, show up and do whatever needs to happen.
Yeah. You put a purpose behind the schedules.
And then they built that into like their actual, I mean, back then it was on paper. We did it on paper and we had it all like color coded and all this stuff. And they rolled that into their actual online scheduling system that they rolled out back in the, I don't know, it's probably like 1999-ish.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a long time
That's
ago.
cool.
I'm old, just FYI.
That is impressive that you had such an impact on such a big corporation.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, and Bruce
cool.
was a smart guy. He was the DM, and we both just sat down and we're like, this is broken. This doesn't work. Like, you're walking stores and there's customers and there's no employees to help.
Yeah.
So you see the problem and you're like, okay, let me get to the root cause of the problem. And the root cause was the scheduling was bad. Have you ever heard of the 5 whys? You have a problem, you ask why. And then you get the answer and you ask why again. And then you get that answer and you ask why again. So there's no employees on the floor. Why? Because no one scheduled them. Why? Because they didn't know that right? You just keep asking why until you actually get to the root problem. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you're fixing
surface
a symptom of a problem and not the actual root cause.
Yeah, that's smart. What I love about that story too is that you were an employee of a company, and most people that are employees of a company don't care that much about the company. But you cared about the problem. Most people just look at it like, yeah, it's not very efficient, but like whatever. That's our system. That's what we do. But you took it as, hey, this isn't efficient. How can we make it better? And that's why you excelled in your roles, is because you had that attitude of how can we make these things better and how can we make the company better, even though it's not your company. You treated it like it was.
Think like an owner, always.
Yeah, and it's so hard to find people that do that.
Totally.
You know, in any business, because it's like, a lot of people just look at, here's my role and I'm just going to do my role.
Yep. And they don't ask questions.
Yeah.
They don't challenge the status quo.
Yeah. But it's like, you're not going to scale in your role if you're not asking questions and trying to improve and make things better. Yeah. I think you can be successful in any position that you're at with any company. You can hit levels of success if you're willing to have that mindset of, this is my company and how can I make it better and how can I improve? And people are going to reward you for that.
100%. And most people want the reward before the work. And that's
Correct.
The issue, right?
Yeah.
I think like an owner and then I get paid like an owner instead of you pay me like an owner and then I'll start thinking like an owner. That's not how it works.
Correct. Yeah. You give me the bonus and then maybe I'll think of
problems. And then maybe
I'll
think about hitting the metrics. Yeah. It doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way. Yeah. I love that. Okay. So switching from your scrapbooking company.
Yep. Sold
that. Where'd you go from there?
I was a stay-home mom for approximately 8 months.
Okay.
But you can only clean your bathrooms so many times in a day.
Yep.
Like I was going absolutely stir crazy. Both my kids were in school. I'm like, I've got to do something. I have worked, 60 plus hours a week my whole life. And so I'm
it's not in your blood to just be staying at home.
I should get a job.
Yeah.
Well, I get a call from my real estate agent who ended up, unbeknownst to me, when I actually bought the house, the day we moved in, I'm like, so do you live up here somewhere? And he's like, yeah, right there. He lived across the street from me. That was Jim Windmiller.
Okay.
Yeah. So Jim lived across the street from me. And like I said, we had just driven into town, called some people saw 2 houses with a different agent, drove up to Loma. We had actually come to see a for sale by owner, which was down here in the valley.
Okay.
And I'm like, Dave, I'm not moving across the country to live in a house that looks exactly like the house we just left in Vegas. Like cookie cutter, I can tell what my neighbor's having for dinner because I can see through the window right there. So I'm like, he's like, well, where do you want to live? I'm like, up there, like where all those big lots are. And he's like, I'm sure they're like $2 million. You're not living up there. I'm like, well, let's just go look.
Yeah.
So we drove up around Loma, called on 2 signs. Jim met us at a house. He showed it to us. And it was like a 5,000 square foot house for like $380,000 or something ridiculous. And I'm like, okay, wait, we drove past one. It's got to be $1 million. But how much is the one on that street? And he's like, oh, I think like 375. I'm like, no, we must be talking about a different house. I'm talking about one little playhouse in the back that matches. He's like, that's 375. I'm like, I want to buy that one. I hadn't even seen it. He's like, let me call her. We'll see if we can get you in. She's got 8 kids. I'm like, oh my gosh. So we went and saw it and made the offer. So
every realtor's dream.
Every realtor's dream. So when we closed on the house and moved in, that's when we're like, so where do you live? And he's like, right there.
That's so funny.
So after we had lived in the house for about a year and a half, we'd kind of remodeled it. We'd sold the scrapbook store and we decided we were going to sell the house. We're like, let's sell it.
Yeah.
I feel like the market's
not
gonna, it's up. We left Vegas. We made $650,000 in 10 months on our second house because the market was going crazy. We've always been pretty intuitive about
where the market's at.
Yeah. So I'm like, we should sell it. Let's just sell it. And then we'll buy a lot and we'll build a house. And he's like, okay. So we called Jim and said, hey, we want to sell.
How long had you been in? About a year?
Year and a half. Okay. Year and a half. Yep. So we ended up listing it. We made about 100 and something thousand off of that one in a year and a half. Yeah. And we didn't do much remodeling. It was like new flooring, paint. We didn't do kitchen or anything.
Not $160,000 worth of remodeling.
No, I think we dumped about 25 into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so after Jim sold it, he came over, gave us a price. We got 7 days, got an offer.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, when he listed it, I was like, okay, so who makes the little flyers that go in the box out front? And he's like, we don't do that here in Idaho. Like, have you ever seen
like
it in
the
Vegas?
Take One? Yeah.
Everybody in Vegas has, every house. Like if you don't have a Take One, you're weird.
Yeah.
So I was like, who makes those? He's like, we don't do that. I'm like, well, do you care if I make my own? And he's like, no, go ahead. So I made one for the house, and then we sold it. Well, after we closed, he's like, do you want to do me a favor? And I was like, sure. What do you want, Jim? And he's like, I need some help in my business. Would you want to come and like work for me? And I was like, sure, I can do that. So I started out literally writing his realtor.com ads.
Wow.
Making sure his stuff got onto Zillow, like just basic stuff. And that turned into
just admin things. Yep.
Yep. Then it turned into, hey, do you want to be a buyer's agent? And I was like, sure. So I got my license. Wow. I was his buyer's agent for a little while. And then Janet Sorensen was another agent in the office, and she approached me and was like,
was he with KW at this time?
No, it was WinStar Realty. It was Indy.
That's what I thought.
He was Indy. Yep. It was right after he had left Realty Executives.
Okay.
So Jim was an owner of Realty Executives. They had disbanded, and he had started WinStar. So I think I probably actually helped him remotely with Realtor.com and stuff while he was still Realty Executives, but I wasn't in real estate yet. So I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know what it meant. So he had me get my license. I got licensed. And then Janet approached me and she's like, my assistant just quit and I need help bad. And I'm like, well, you got to ask Jim. She's in the same office, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, you got to ask Jim. Like I'm his buyer's agent. I'm helping him. She asked him and he's like, sure, we can just split her. Yeah. So I kind of worked for Janet and him.
Okay.
And then Janet, I was all administrative. I didn't really, I did a couple buyers like when she was on vacation or whatever.
Did you like the buyer's agent role?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Doesn't seem like that's what you'd want to be doing.
No. I mean, I loved helping people. I loved talking to people and helping people, but just like the grind of like showing houses and it just wasn't fun for me.
Yeah.
It wasn't super fun. I have some clients that have been like repeat and referral clients all the way back from then. Like I have one family, I think I sold 6 people in their family house.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did have a lot of good relationships, but it just wasn't my passion. I liked, funny thing about me, and I think you'll find there are very few, I consider myself kind of a unicorn. I am very entrepreneurial, but I'm extremely risk averse.
Yep.
So I'm willing to like hang my coattails on someone else who's very risky.
Yeah.
And be like, we can make this work, but I don't want to take the risk myself. I don't want to be the
blunt of the risk. Yeah.
And so the buyer's agent was very risky for me because it's not a steady income. You just don't know.
Yep. That makes sense.
Yep. So I did that with Janet for a little while. And then I actually, funny fact, I was the first salesperson at Hawks Landing.
Really?
Yeah. So I opened up Hawks Landing as the salesperson. I planned the whole like grand opening.
Wow.
Yeah. So I did that. But after 6 months, and we hadn't sold a house.
Because what year was this? 2008. Yep. Okay. Sounds about right.
Yeah, 2008. So we did the big grand opening. We had like 2,000 people through the grand opening.
Wow.
We had not sold one house. I was on salary for the first 90 days. And then once we opened, it was 100% commission, 0 income.
Yeah.
So I was like,
it's not for me.
So Janet had fired the assistant that she had hired when I had left and said, hey, I have this great opportunity to go work for Hawks Landing.
Yeah.
She begged me to come back. So I went back with Janet for a little while. And then she decided to move to St. George. And so Jim Windmiller, that's when Keller Williams happened. And Jim's like, I'm going to build a team. I need you to help me build a team.
Got it.
And I was like, okay. So we built the first kind of KW structured team in Idaho. So it was Jim was the listing agent. We had 3 buyers agents and me. We were just kind of building this team up.
Wow. So you were with Jim when he really started his whole team structure.
Yeah.
And took on the ownership of Keller Williams. Okay.
Yep. And
how long did you stay with him?
I was with Jim for about a year. And then I got a call one day from Steve Anderson. And Steve and I had talked on deals and stuff, but I didn't really know Steve. And he's like, Stephanie, and this was right when KW and Remax were merging.
Okay.
We were probably a month from the merger.
Okay.
Steve called me. He said, hey, I don't know who told him to call me, to be honest. I don't know how that happened. But he's like, hey, I heard that you know how to build a team. And Sean and I are trying to build a team. Can we pay you to consult with us and just kind of help us get our structure set up? Because it was Steve and Sean. And then they had a couple gals that worked for them that were basically working on the Fannie Mae's. That's what they did. They had the Fannie Mae contract. So that was 90% of their business. And I was like, okay. So I went over and I met with them and they said, we need an operations manual. We have no idea we just sell real estate. We have no idea what's going on the back end. We need it documented. Sean's very operational minded. Yeah. Steve's very sales minded. Steve's like the craziest guy in the whole world. And he's super funny when he's mad. It's 1% of the time and he's really serious. Sean's super serious and he's really goofy 1% of the time. But when he's really goofy, he's hilarious. They just make a great pair.
Yeah.
They make a great pair. So, I met with them and the first thing I said is okay, I can get it all documented. Yeah. But you guys need a strong operations person running this, documenting it.
It's great.
That's great. But who's running it and who's building it and evolving it? And they're like, we don't have anybody. And I'm like, what about, the people you have working for you right now? And they're like, they're good at what they do, but they can't build. They're not systems. And I was like, okay. And they're like, do you know anybody? And I'm like, I really don't, but I'll keep my ears open. So I left that meeting and I went home and I pulled numbers and I'm like, crap, I don't want to consult for those guys. I want to work for those guys. They were doing triple what we were doing. And I was like, I see huge things in their future. If they can get this right, I could really attach myself to these guys.
So were they doing the REOs during that time? Okay.
Yep.
So for those that are listening, when she says the Fannie Mae contracts and stuff, during 2008 with the foreclosures, they had those contracts to sell those bank-owned properties.
Fannie Mae just called them. And I think I bet they did. I'm trying to think of that year that I joined them. I think they did about 160 units and 90 of them were Fannie Mae. Wow. 90% of them were Fannie Mae. So 104.
It's crazy.
And I should have bought them all.
Yeah. Hindsight's 2020.
I told Sean that about I don't know, a year and a half ago. I was like, dude, we should have just bought all those. What were we doing? Giving them to other people?
You guys would all be on an island somewhere.
We would be. I'd be so rich. I wouldn't know what to do with myself. Yeah. So, my next meeting with them when I went back and I had, I created this operations manual. And again, this was 2011. So it was still very much paper-based. There was no real way, really good way to capture information.
Yeah.
In a really readily accessible format. So it was in a notebook, but it was okay, this is step-by-step how everything, I sat down with the gals that work for them and watched everything they did and documented every step of the process.
And that's kind of so SOPs back then were you're handwriting the manual.
Up. Yep.
Yeah. So, and it's thinking nowadays what we do, it's everything's online.
Everything's online.
Task management. It's it's
100%
so different, but that's cool.
Yep.
Okay.
So I presented them with this notebook and I went back and I'm like, okay, here it is, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, well, did you think of anybody
that could help us?
And I'm like, well, I might know someone. And they're like, you don't want to do it, do you? And I was like, you might be able to convince me. And they're like, okay, when can you start? Wow. And that was it. I started, I didn't even know my wage. I literally accepted a job and I had no idea how much they were going to pay me. I had that much faith
in what they're doing
that I could make money and that we would make money. Wow. And so we grew that thing. So in 2011, that's when August of 2011, I started working for them. In 2013, in January, they decided they were going to split. They were going to part ways. They just had different opinions on how the business should run.
Steve and Sean.
Got
it. Okay.
And they said, you can go with whoever you want. And I was like, oh, crap.
Put it into your court.
Put it in my court. And Steve, honestly, I freaking love Steve Anderson. Like he is the coolest, funniest guy.
Yeah.
And that would have been the easy choice. But Sean, I thought, was going to build it big. Steve was like, I'm happy selling real estate all day long, every day. And he's an amazing salesperson.
He's great to work with on transactions. Yeah.
Awesome. Just awesome. He has the most creative ways to get around issues and problems and deals. That's Steve, but he's not a process guy. And he didn't want to build a team.
Yeah.
And I knew Sean would build something massive. He was way harder to work with because he's very particular.
Yep.
He knows what he wants. So it was more of a
tug
and pull. But I was like, and I'm glad I did. I mean, we ended up, when I left AHG, we did 714 units that last year, and we had 44 people on the team.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So you left. So you decided to go with Sean.
Yep.
And you guys built a team from scratch, basically with Sean.
Yep.
Okay. How long were you with him building that?
We merged in 2019, so we built what we had for 7 years until we merged.
Got it.
Or 7 years, 11 to 19.
From your perspective as an ops manager, why? What was the cause of the merger? What do you think?
You know what? It was a good thing. It was funny because I mean we were like bitter rivals, right?
Yeah, it was for
number
our
one
local
and number
market.
two.
It was like the shock.
You're like, what the crap just happened? Yeah, it was like 1 and 2. I mean, we were like neck and neck every year, and honestly, I couldn't the Hicks team to me was like poison. Like, like no, they are my bitter enemy. I'm gonna beat them. We were always number 2, and it always just pissed me off. I'm like, okay, we're gaining on them, and then they pull ahead. I'm like, ah! So it was kind of a funny thing. We actually the kind of the linchpin is we had grown to a point where we knew we needed a sales manager. Sean could not be the CEO, the CFO, and then me, the COO, and nobody managing the sales team. Yeah. He didn't have the time to pour into the agents to make sure that they were happy and trained and all the things.
Taken care of. Yeah.
So we're like, we need to hire a sales manager. So we started interviewing, and we interviewed Chris Bertinoli, who used to be a client of ours. We sold a house. Yeah, Chris was a client of ours, and Sean knew him personally. So we interviewed him and loved him. Got all the way to the group interview, and I'm like, Sean, you got to hire him. Like everybody loved him. The whole team loved the group interview. Yeah. So Sean made him an offer, and Chris turned it down. Oh. It was very much a
in the group interview.
No, afterwards.
Okay, I was like, man, that's
brutal.
Yeah.
No. It was after. So he made him the offer, and Chris turned it down. Chris wanted a very high salary, and Sean's like, I'm paying you a low salary with a high bonus potential.
Because it's hard in real estate to pay high salaries.
We need the sales, so we can't just pay you $150,000 a year. Yeah, like you have to actually earn it by sales. Yeah. So he turned it down, and I didn't think anything of it. We were still on the hunt, and then 3 months later, someone said something about Mike Hicks's new sales manager named Chris. And I texted Sean. I'm like, you don't think that's Chris Bertinoli, do you?
Oh, no.
And he's like, I don't know. And so I texted someone on the team, Hicks's team, and I'm like, what's your new sales manager's last name? Bertinoli. I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me right now? I'm like, Sean, it's him. He's over there. And so what had happened is he had filled out after he declined us, he had filled out an application for the KW team leader.
Oh, okay.
To be the team leader. And I think they wanted him to be the team leader, but again, not the salary he was looking for. Yeah. And then Mike, of course, because he's an owner of KW, he saw his KPA and he's like, man, I think this guy would be a great sales manager. So he made him a different offer that was acceptable to Chris, as part ownership in Mike's company. Yeah. So anyway, Sean and I get to talking one day and we're just pissed off about this, right? Because now our biggest competitor just took the guy that we wanted. Yeah. And we're talking one day and Chris and Sean had been continuing to talk to Chris even after Chris joined. And Chris is like, we've got this issue we're trying to fix. Operationally, this is not right. They just didn't have strong ops. We had dialed ops. Yeah. And one day we're talking and I'm like, and Sean's coach kept telling him, you got to stop talking to him. Like that is your competition, stop talking to him. And so Sean and I are in the office one day and I'm like, I really don't want to say this out loud. And he's like, what? Just say it. I'm like, I can't say it. And he's like, what? And I'm like, I feel like they have what we're missing, which which is a sales manager to run a sales team. And we have what they're missing, which is dialed in systems and ops. And he's like, you would never like consider merging with them, would you? And I'm like, maybe. Like the thought had never crossed my mind.
Yeah.
Ever. Well, Sean, the next day, he's like, full disclosure, Chris has asked.
Really?
He had asked.
He'd already asked him.
He'd asked him like a couple weeks before. He had floated the idea. What would you think? But Sean told me, he's like, I won't do it without you. I can't. Do it without you. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because I wouldn't have been able to just. And that was the beginning. And it was crazy. We were meeting together in like restaurants at 6 o'clock in the morning, because it was all in secret that we're trying to plan this merger.
It's a small town too.
We're like, anybody around know us?
Yeah. That's crazy.
So that's how we merged.
So you were part of that merger, and that happened in 2019.
Yep.
Okay. How big were you guys prior to the merger?
Let's see. Hicks team, I think they had about 16 people total between ops and agents.
Okay.
And I think we were sitting at about 12.
Okay.
Ops, agents, ISAs, the whole.
And how many transactions were you guys doing independently as the
So in 2018, if you combined our two transactions, we would have been at 800.
Wow.
So I think Mike did like 440, and we did like 360-ish, somewhere around there. So it was right around 800.
Okay. So you guys merged together, and how was that transition? Like,
it's a good question.
Coming into like for you as a systems team,
and
them not necessarily a systems team. How was that for you on your ops side?
It was fun. Because I was like, woo, a new challenge. Like we had built ours out, and they were pretty much humming along. I mean, we had a system for everything, and it was very smooth, and everything was automated. And I just felt like Sean's an amazing Excel user, like power user. Like, he thinks in Excel.
Yeah.
And I'm really good at the math. So we could sit in a room and create a report. I'm like, okay, if we want to do this divided by this plus this and VLOOKUP this, and he can do it. I can know what we're doing, and he can just do it. But the two of us together, it was like rocket fuel. We could do it so great. So it was fun for me, because I was like, I see all these opportunities of stuff we can do.
Yeah.
So it was super fun. And then we decided to just switch CRMs in January. We merged in November, and then we're like, oh, we blew everything else up. Why don't we switch CRMs?
Light it all on fire
Let's
right now.
just do this. Yeah. So it was super fun.
So that first year, what did you guys end up doing as a team?
Let me think for a second. I think right around 660-ish.
Okay.
Yep.
At that point, like, was there any concern of like, was this the right decision? Because transactions went down a little bit.
A little bit, but the market had started to change a little bit. And of course, you're going to lose people. When that happens, like you are going to lose people. It's not going to, and the funny thing is, here's the really interesting thing that happened in that merge. So the thing that took us the longest to decide as we're meeting in secret is splits.
Yeah,
what are the splits going to be? Because Mike's splits were way higher than ours. We had always run an ISA model with a lead listing manager making a split, and it was a low split because we're just feeding him listings, and he's just going on listings. And it was Jason Greider, and he's friggin' amazing.
Yeah.
And he was just going on listings, but his split was very low because all of the work was leveraged off onto the team. Everything, right? So he just had to go get him signed, negotiate, and he's done.
Yeah.
So we always had that model with buyer's agents, and then we had ISAs. So ISAs are just putting appointments on buyer's agents' calendars.
Yep.
So they're running at a 40% split to the buyer's agent, and I think our listing side was like 25.
Wow.
Right? So that's the model we had run. Well, Mike allowed his team to do both listing and buyers, and his splits were high, like really high, over 50%. So we have this giant gap we're trying to
come together on.
Yeah. And the interesting thing that happened is we spent all this time, we made a 5-tiered split level, listing, buyer, team lead versus agent lead. And we had this great split model. So we merged, we rolled it to the team. The first 4 agents that left were agents that splits went up.
Yeah.
So super interesting. We figured we'd lose Mike's team for people from Mike's teams first, because their splits were coming down. They had to.
Yeah. Okay. I get what you're saying.
They had to come down.
Yeah.
Right. They were getting less money. They were at 70 or 75, and now they're earning 50 or 50. Right. So his splits are coming down.
Got it.
The ones that went up from 40 to 50%, those are the ones that left first.
Were they just worried about not getting the lead and like spoon fed as much?
I believe so, yes,
Okay.
because he never had an ISA.
Yeah.
These guys are like, what? You put appointments on our
Yeah,
calendar?
they're like, this is great.
This is
pay more?
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just show up. So they saw the value in the appointments, and ours saw the takeaway in the number of appointments, even though the money they'd make on each one was greater. So it's very interesting. It was the last thing that I expected to happen.
I feel like that's the hardest part with any team running. I talked to big teams out of Utah and stuff. Just that split structure, finding out what that split structure is, and then your value add to justify that split structure.
And when the market shifts, it's even tougher because now the lead count goes down.
Yep.
And I've seen a ton of teams. I mean, I coach teams all over the country. Tons of them are imploding because the value was only the leads.
Yep.
So the value beyond, or they didn't sell it. They did have value, but they weren't emphasizing what the value is beyond leads.
Yeah. Our big thing is, I mean, culture I feel like is so important, especially nowadays. Like people want culture. And so we really try to push that as a big value out here too. But at the end of the day, when a market gets tough, what are agents going to want? Their number one thing they're going to want is leads.
Yep.
So you have to figure out that game too, because your culture can be as good as you want, but if you also don't have,
if they're not making any money, it doesn't matter how fun it is to come to work.
Correct, exactly. So it's like you got to find that balance. What's coming into the real estate world? Because that's mostly where you work, right? You're mostly involved in the real estate world.
Currently, not so much.
Okay.
Like right now, it's a mastermind group of high net worth men. So, but I can say that majority of them are very heavily invested in real estate. So I do have a lot of ties to real estate still, but the day-to-day, most of my day-to-day knowledge is because I still coach real estate teams and I'm seeing what they're doing.
Okay. What do you think, what is the biggest struggle with real estate teams that you see?
Right now?
Yeah.
They don't know how to pivot fast enough. Right. And it's funny because at certain things, we pivoted super fast, but I don't know why this market, right? When COVID hit, how fast did we pivot? We're like, holy crap, right? We got to do open houses, not showing up to the open house. We got to sign for closings, never stepping in a title company. When forced to shift fast, we shifted. The problem with the shifting market is people are dragging their feet on making the change. They don't realize they're trying to do what they always did because it's not forced on them.
Correct.
Right?
Because it's not bad enough yet.
COVID forced it on them. They shut everything down and said, sorry, you can't come in the title company. That was a forced change.
Yep.
This is a voluntary change that, hey, 200 calls doesn't do it anymore. I got to make 600 calls.
Yep.
They just aren't shifting fast enough.
Yeah, that's true. That's good. That's a really good point. With the teams that you coach, from an operations standpoint, where do you think they lack the most?
Most people don't know what their biggest problem is. That's the problem. Mm-hmm. The biggest problem most companies have is that they don't know what their biggest problem is. That's a quote by Mike Michalowicz in the book, Fix This Next. I can never say that fast. He should have named that something else. But literally, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, have you heard of that before, right? Mm-hmm. It's the way humans behave based on their needs. Yep. And when they're starving and don't have any clothes and don't have anywhere to sleep, they're going to act way different than when they're way up here it's the same thing for business, right? And you look at that hierarchy of needs, and the bottom is sales. Mm-hmm. You have to have enough sales to support your personal lifestyle. Yep. You've got to convert enough clients. If everything in that first thing is good, move on to profit and then move on to order. But most people don't know where their problem is. Yeah. And so they have to dig in and figure out, okay, what's my biggest problem? And if you buy that book, it's a great book because
you said it's called
Fix This Next.
Okay, Fix This Next
by Mike Michalowicz.
Okay.
Yeah. And he basically asks you 5 questions in the sales thing, and if you can say yes to all 5, great, you can move on to profit. If you say no, you stop right there, and that is your linchpin that you have to fix first.
Interesting. Yeah, that's good. Because I think a lot of operators or business owners, they try to fix the wrong thing. Because it's
all the time.
Yeah, all the time. It's like,
all the time.
It must be our logo or our website or something like that. And it's like, it's not the main cause. It's like, that's the fluff that you get to play with when you have the other things that are working.
Yeah. Or they migrate to that because that's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun to fix that.
It's what they enjoy to do. Yeah.
Let's fix that. That sounds fun. Instead of crap, this is my biggest issue right now. I have got to go fix this.
Yeah.
And like I said, when you ask why 5 times, you generally find out what the actual real issue is. Most people fix symptoms of problems. They really do.
Yeah.
They don't fix the root cause.
Yeah. Because they don't ask enough questions to get there.
Nope.
So transitioning from running this team, and I guess first off, why did you transition out of running the ops team or running that ops role with
them
HG?
and leave?
Yeah,
it's kind of a long story, but honestly, it was lack of opportunity.
Yeah.
Because I was like, hey, I've been here 11 years.
Yeah.
I've hired every operational person on the team.
Yeah.
It was really funny because one of the gals that she was the marketing director that we hired in my little goodbye party that they had for me in the basement. She's like, I just want everybody to raise their hand if they're here because of Stephanie.
Wow.
And it was like a third of the team that I had either hired or brought on, or they were relatives of mine, or, my daughter worked there.
Because I was going to say, Haley was working there.
Haley worked there. My brother still works there. My nephew was the runner. Annika, I saw on Facebook, some girl looking for a job, and I'm like, I'm going to reach out to her. I think we should hire her. She looks awesome. So I brought her in. Like, there was just a lot. Adri was my listing coordinator. She was there because of me. There's a lot of people that I had brought on.
Yeah.
So I felt like, you know what, I had contributed, and my pay with that company stopped the day I quit. Mm-hmm. There was not opportunity. I wasn't looking for a different job.
Yeah.
I was looking for more opportunity.
Yep.
And so I had asked for ownership, and they were working on it, but I got tired of waiting for it, honestly. And that makes I was unrecruitable for probably 10 years.
Wow.
You couldn't have paid me to leave because I felt like opportunity. But then I became recruitable.
Yeah. It's hard because as a business owner, it's like your vision you always have to be growing to make sure the people in your world have enough opportunity to fit their needs.
Yep.
And it's the minute you stop growing as a business owner, it's like you are going to start to lose people because you got to constantly be pushing that vision and that growth so that you can carry everybody else up.
Yep.
So you transitioning to this new company that you're working with, and you're still kind of in the real estate world, obviously. But how has it been transitioning to like working with other, maybe because they're just successful high net worth individuals that might run other businesses? Have you gotten some insight on like businesses that they're running and like,
oh my gosh, it's been amazing. And it's opened my eyes. You would not believe, like I was thinking so small.
Yeah.
I was thinking so incredibly small. And the guy I work for now, Matt King, he's unbelievable. I think he's about 32. Wow. I mean, he's a young kid, and he is smart as a whip.
What does he do?
He is he's the chief of staff for DRO Investments. So DRO Investments is a family office, basically high net worth individual that owns a lot of, right? So he's the chief of staff. So he basically oversees all those businesses. And so working for him, he thinks huge. Everything is an opportunity. Everything is an opportunity. And so it's just, I mean, I would have never started a transaction management company, a year and a half ago. But I get a call from Tasca. She used to work for me. She's like, hey, I want to move on. And I'm like, okay, what do you want to do? She's like, I don't know. She's like, I just want a different job. And I'm like, okay. Hold please. Call up Haley on the phone. I'm like, do you want to start a transaction management company? She's like, well, I wanted to a year and a half ago. And I'm like, I know, but you said you were going to be the TC. You're taking pictures. How are you going to do this? You can't. You already work 80 hours a week. You can't be the TC too. And you hated it when you were doing it. And she's like, okay. We met with Tasca. Boom. Hire. I would have never taken that risk before, right? Because we were putting her on salary for the first 3 months because I mean, in order to get her, I got to pay her. She's not going to wait for closings to happen.
Yep.
I would have never taken that risk in the past. And it was just one of those things where I'm like, freak, these guys do it all the time and they didn't die.
Yeah. So that's the biggest thing. It's so powerful to get around, get into those rooms. Mm-hmm. I spend a lot of money just going to masterminds and events.
You should join Go Bundance.
Maybe we need to talk about
we'll
that.
Talk about it.
Yeah. There's because I'm a part of, it's a funny story actually. One of the masterminds that I'm a part of is called Be Wealthy Mastermind, and it's run by Brett Tanner. And I was actually at one of the masterminds, and I was talking to one
Where's it located?
So he's based out of Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay.
But then
members all over the country.
Correct.
Obviously.
Members all over the country. We do quarterly masterminds, and we'll go to Park City, and then to Scottsdale, and then to Nashville. Like he'll just all over wherever he wants to go. He'll just put the mastermind there, and everybody flies in. But I was talking at one of the social hours and talking to somebody about our systems and operations, and he's like, yeah, our ops manager, she's training with the best ops manager in the country. I'm like, oh, who is it? And they're like, her name's Stephanie Brackett. I'm like, she's in our local market. Yeah, like I know her. She was the ops manager for the largest team in our market. So
funny.
That's how I was like, man. And then I started really digging into kind of what you're doing, because I think you had just transitioned out of that.
Yeah.
And so I was digging into like, where'd she take this other job?
Where'd I go?
So it's kind of cool to see what you're actually doing. And but with that group, like a lot of those guys are running successful retail teams, but they're also running very successful like investment side teams.
Yep.
Doing the wholesale and the hotel and buying properties.
Yep.
And so we've started getting into that. And, this next 3 weeks, like we're closing on 3 properties ourselves
awesome.
to get into that thing. But I would have never done that if I hadn't gotten into that room,
into those rooms,
and felt comfortable because they're talking about it and doing this. And I'm like, well, if they're doing it, I can do that. Yeah. I know everything.
Yeah. I think it's the biggest mistake that real estate agents make is not investing in what they do.
Yep.
Which is buying freaking real estate
properties. Yeah.
Buy it. I mean, there's guys in our group, they're 29 years old and they're worth 10, $15 million. And it's all from buying and selling properties or buying and holding them.
Yeah. It's the biggest, it's what Brett Tanner, that's his core thing is like, he owns, it's Elite Home Advisors in Phoenix, and they've branched off. They have like 5 offices now throughout different states. He doesn't really run that. Like he runs that, but the money, the profit that they make from their investment side is far surpasses their retail team, and their retail team does good. But, and so like seeing those numbers, I'm like, okay, we need to figure out that game along, because the retail team can drive the investment business. Like they're the machine that creates the opportunities for it. But now you got to figure out how to capitalize on those opportunities when they come. And so we're playing into that realm right now. But again, it's like getting in the right rooms with the right people is the only way.
Change your life.
Change your life. Yeah.
It'll change your life.
Especially in our small community, we tend to not be surrounded with people that think super big.
And that was honestly, like, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was one of the biggest issues I had as an ops person. So it's 2015, right? Yep. And Sean is awesome, but he's also very particular. If you know the personality profile, DISC personalities, he's a DC, which means he's super high driver, but he wants everything perfect. Yep. Right? And so those people they're hard to work with because they nitpick everything, and they're not big on like praise and telling you you're doing a good job, right?
It's just expected.
Right. So here it is 2015, and I mean, I literally work my ass off every day. I work 60, 70 hours a week. I'm just every day, and I'm just feeling beat down. And I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm stupid. Maybe I'm just not that good of maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was.
Maybe I don't deserve the praise or something.
Right. Maybe I'm just not as good as I thought I was. And a friend invited me to a Facebook group called EA Masterminds Executive Facebook page. It was a KW page, but they have all people in there now. There's, Remax and everybody's in there. And I started like getting involved in that group, and people would ask questions and I would answer them, and they're like, wow, she's really smart. Like, and people were like calling saying, hey, can I come shadow you for a day? Can we come work with? And I'm like, sure. So I had people flying in from Missouri and from Portland to come shadow for a day. And that started building my confidence, being in that room. And that's how I got into Ops Boss. Christy started watching me. She was the leader of her team. She was out of a team in right outside the DC area, one of the first teams in the country to do $1 billion in sales. Wow. And she was the COO for like 25 years.
Wow.
And she wanted to get out. She wrote a class. It was called Be a Boss, 10 Secrets of a Mega EA. She was teaching it all over the country.
Wow.
And she's like, I have such a passion for operations and real estate. She's like, it's so overlooked, and just super passionate about it. So she decided to leave her team. It was a family team, leave her team and create this Ops Boss coaching.
Wow.
And I was her first coach, and she got me from stalking Facebook. She would just watch for like ever. And we had a conversation once, and I was like, hey, she invited me to a mastermind dinner at a KW family reunion. We went to dinner. Loved the conversation, high level COOs. And then I was like, hey, have you ever thought of like teaching other people to teach your class? Because you can only be in one place at one time, right? Yep. You can only do one class.
Yep.
So even if you did one class every single week, you're going to max out at that many classes with travel. 52 classes. That's all you can do.
Yeah.
I'm like, have you ever thought about teaching other people to teach your class? And then you can have like 10 people teaching the class and you make money off of it. Yeah. She's like, actually, and that's how we started talking.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were one of the first coaches that they brought on?
I was the first.
Very first
I'm the
coach.
OG. Yep.
Wow. That's awesome.
And I carried the biggest roster. Most of the other coaches probably have between 4 and 6 clients.
Okay.
And then we have group coaching. They have a lot, but it's a group. You're talking to all of them at one time. So you have like 40 people on the call at the same time.
So you've got 18 clients that you personally do individually.
Yep. And I've branched out. I just don't do real estate anymore. I have people I have a real estate agent that I coach that's an agent. I coach Alumni Institute, which gives people CDREs, your Certified Divorce Real Estate Expert. So if you want to get your CDRE accreditation, you go to Alumni Institute. I coach them.
Wow.
I coach medical practice. I coach a hard money lender
Oh, really?
The operations of a hard money lender. Yeah.
Okay.
So I've just kind of branched out to coach other than just real estate.
And that, I think it's cool. Like even you getting into the coaching of that and like understanding their businesses, like even hard money lending.
Yeah. It's all operations.
It's everything needs operations, but it even opens your eyes to like different businesses and opportunities. Cause like even hard money lending right now, that's been a big push for a lot of, that's something we're doing. We just did our first hard money loan not too long ago. And again, something that I would have never done. But I was in a room with people that were doing it. So I was like,
and you're like, oh, I could do that.
I could do that. Yeah. And what I've noticed is getting into some of those rooms, we're, the structure of the brokers that we're with, you have the revenue share and you got like people that are above you. And the guy that's above us, he runs the Perry Group out of Utah.
Oh, cool.
And so I've gone in and shadowed
What's the group? What's it called?
It's called the Perry Group.
I think I've heard of them.
Yeah. They did about almost $1 billion last year. They did like 845 million.
Yep. My maiden name's Perry. That's why I.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're not related, I don't think. Maybe like 5 generations or something.
He's a stud. He runs it with his brother and his dad, but he's like 26.
Okay.
But going into their operation, like how many agents they have, how much volume they're doing, and I go in and I'm like, but they're not doing this or this, and then it starts to click of like he's just willing to take the risk, and they blew up and they're doing this stuff. We could get there too, especially because I think there's things that we're doing that are better than they're doing.
Yep.
And that gives you the confidence, just like you said, when you're in this Facebook group and people are coming in and you're like, wait a second, maybe I am as good as I think.
Maybe we are smart.
Yeah. So it's like, but when you're in your little ecosystem, you feel like you're kind of limited to how good you are. And then you start to get out in these other markets where I really think that the reason you can only get so much market share here, I feel like. Yeah. And then you have to branch out into another market
or another industry or not. Yeah.
To really scale. And so like, I don't think maybe we could do 800 million in Idaho Falls would be crazy, but they have a bigger population, a bigger market. So they have a bigger opportunity.
Yep.
Sometimes it's just like your opportunity that you're in just isn't big enough. It's not that you're not good enough. It's just that your opportunity.
I mean, there's 100,000 people.
Correct.
And how many people are actually going to buy houses, right? Every time you put a little factor on it, you're limiting the number of people that could buy your product.
Yes.
Right. If I sell a widget in Idaho Falls, whatever that widget is, I could sell it to everybody. And then you're like, okay, well, it only works with iPhone. Say it's an iPhone widget. Right now, I just reduced the amount of people that can do it by probably, hopefully only like 10%, but
yeah,
you Android users, just kidding. You know what? And each time you put another layer on, you're reducing, and that's the same thing with real estate, right?
Yeah.
There's 100,000 people, but how many of them actually own houses? Okay, of those that own houses, how many actually want to sell their house?
Correct.
Of those that want to sell their house, how many actually have any equity and can sell their house? And you just keep going till you're left with this small pool of people that you can deal with, and then you're trying to take the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I've started to realize. Because at this, we're like, we want to grow this team to this size and get this much market share. And we're like, okay, let's be realistic though. Even if
is it mathematically possible?
Correct. It's like, how can we actually do it? We probably will cap it here. And our next thing is like, we want to grow into different areas where the opportunity is a little bit bigger.
Yep.
And take what we've learned here and try to implement it. That's a hard game to play. And I know I've seen teams that have played it and not worked out so well.
We tried it. We tried expansion and we failed at it. And even though we're super solid in systems and everything, I think expansion, it comes down to the right person.
People. Yep.
It is a person. You can have all the best systems in the world, but if you don't have the right person running the system, you will fail every time.
Correct. Yep. And have you read the book Who Not How?
Of course.
Yes. So it's like, that's the biggest thing that we've looked at too, is that you just got to have the right people.
The right people.
And that's the 100%. Only way that's the only way to grow and scale.
Anything.
Is through people.
Anything. It's the people. Yep.
So I love that. So the whole family office, that's one thing that I've kind of been introduced to now.
I didn't even know what it was.
Yeah.
I had no idea what it was until I took this job. I'm like, what's a family office? Like you guys all just hang out. Your whole family just goes into the office and works together. Is that what totally not what a family office is?
No. And that's, they talk about that in this mastermind group that I'm with too. Brett Tanner runs his family office because he runs his mastermind group and his wholesale, all the divisions, Yep. So you're the ops for the family office. Correct. That's over all the companies.
Correct.
Okay. Which is such an interesting concept that I had no idea about. When they would talk about family offices, I'm like, what exactly is it? But you talk about, you've got your operations person that's not necessarily operations. I think of it in what we're doing, not necessarily just operations for our team, but in all the other companies or anything that we get into.
Yeah.
That person's for the family office oversees operations for everything.
Yeah. Like how do I build a system for this particular business that we own? And
Correct.
Yep.
So with that, you're over, what kind of businesses are you involved in with that family office?
Mostly right now, it's been Go Bundance. I mean, I've done some stuff on like structure of certain things, helping create the org chart for the family office and some basic stuff. But the big need was, I mean, he owned 100% of this Go Bundance Champions, which was the high net worth division of Go Bundance.
Okay.
And he was just like, we don't have any systems for this thing. And so I built the onboarding, the offboarding, the retention, everything. I'm like, okay, it's built. Now we got to hire someone to run it. I can't do anything else. It's a full-time job to run what I built. So he allowed me to hire someone to run it. Okay. And then they had a shake up on the other side. He's like, okay, now I need you to come over here. And now, so that's what I've been doing. I mean, I've only been there for a year and 3 months. So, it took about, we went from 154 members when I joined to almost 300 by the end of the year. So big growth in the year.
Yeah.
And just changing the member experience contributed to that, right? You don't want people falling out the bottom while you're adding them in the top. It's better just to keep the ones there and add more.
Yep.
So I feel like we got that pretty dialed, and now we're switching to the other division, and Matt became the CEO of that division, Matt King, my boss.
Okay.
Even though he's running the family office, and the guy works like 9,000 hours a week. I don't know how he does it. He's hilarious. And so he's like, I need your help over here. So now I've transitioned over there. So I have like 13 people that report to me. I manage the sales department, the member services department, the programs department, and then the champions division. So.
Wow. What's his name that the guy that runs it all?
Matt King.
Matt. What's his boss?
Oh, I don't reveal that information.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I was curious to see, like, what was his bread and butter? Like, what got him started?
Real estate.
Okay. Was he just running a team?
Real estate. His mom was one of the first real estate agents at KW, like forever ago in Austin, Texas.
Okay.
Yep.
And he's just kind of grown from
real
there.
estate.
That's awesome.
Yep.
And how has it been for you going from like because you at everything else, you're mostly in-house.
Yeah. I was always in the office. Now I'm remote.
Yeah. How's that transition been?
Well, I got dressed today and put makeup on and did my hair.
Like, I don't usually have to do this.
What's funny is most people are like, oh, when you work at home, you work way less. I work 10 times more because I get up in the morning. Most of my coaching calls are before work. So they're East Coasters. So I start coaching at 6:30. So I get up, get as ready as I'm going to get for the day, which usually means ponytail and a hat. Get up to my office by 6:30. Sit down, do 3 coaching calls in a row. So a 6:30, a 7, a 7:30, and then I just start working. And then at about 6 or 7 at night, I'm like, crap, I haven't eaten all day, or crap, I need to go. Like, my husband's like, are you going to stop working sometime tonight? And I literally haven't gotten up. So yeah, it's kind of weird, but I do a lot of Zooms. I thought, oh, I'm going to miss the interaction. I do a lot of Zooms. And so I do still have that interaction, but honestly, I get so much crap done. I don't have kids at home. My husband works at home, but he's like in the summer, he's out on jobs. So I don't see and I can just concentrate and just get crap done.
And in your role with technology nowadays, it's like you can manage operations from anywhere because everything's online. So you can track and see what's going on.
Yep. As long as you have the right system, which is what I'm building now, because they didn't have the right system. So I'm building a system for them now.
Smart.
Yeah.
But my wife she runs a little bit of the operations. So we've got an ops manager, but her biggest thing, like in that role, being in office is almost harder because
way harder. It's constant interruptions.
Yeah. And
constant.
She just complained about that the other day. And I'm like, maybe I just need to she's in my office and, being the team lead, everybody comes in with every problem on the planet.
Yep.
And so she always gets out of her flow. And I think now that you're saying this too, I'm like, maybe we just need to get her in an office or maybe just even have her work from home so she can just dial in and focus.
Dial it. And you know what? Even when I was with the HG and like, we were very good at protecting our time. Mm-hmm. So, when the guys were lead genning, when the agents were lead genning, I was like, okay, I'm going dark. I always had a quarterly rock I was working on, right? Yeah. So one quarter, it was like redoing the entire onboarding system, start to finish. One quarter, it was like updating the whole operations manual and putting everything on a Google site and making everything totally searchable and perfect. So there was big projects.
Yeah.
So 9:00 when lead gen started, I'd flip my thing on my door. I'm going dark. I'd shut down every window on my computer and just be on whatever I was working on, and 2 hours straight, just knock it out. And then open my door back up. All right, everybody, let the floodgates open. Come on in.
The problems.
Yep, yeah. All the problems. But I can just get so much stuff done at home because I can just time block really easily.
Yeah. I need to talk to her about that because it seems like that might be the way to go. Get her out of this environment, get her in. Because you guys, as an operations manager in that systems role, it takes a lot of brain power to think of how things are going to interact and how they're going to flow.
Yeah.
And if you get broken up, like somebody comes in with a question, you're out of your
start
flow.
all over.
Yeah. So that's,
they talk about that in the One Thing book, the cost of interruptions. It takes, even a 2-minute interruption ends up costing you like 20 minutes to get back into the flow where you were.
Yeah.
And I've noticed with myself, I read a book called At Your Best by Carrie Neowolf. I read like 50 bazillion books a year. Like
That's awesome.
Yeah. But he talked about your red zone and your yellow zone and your green zone. And everybody really only has about 4 to 5 hours in a green zone every day. And that's the zone where your brain is on it and it is working right. And it is just, and then you have your yellow zone, which is like, you can have meetings, we could do a podcast, I can think and I'm good, but I shouldn't be working on an Excel spreadsheet trying to calculate formulas right now.
Yeah.
And then you have your red zone, which is like when you're done, like don't try and do it. You can do meaningless tasks or do nothing. But you got to make sure you're structuring your work so that you're working on your hardest work when you're at your best.
Yeah. Because you're going to be so much more effective.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I have a great example. So one day Sean's like, okay, so we have this checklist that we do when we have a settlement statement. Okay. We get a settlement statement in, we have a checklist, and we're basically comparing it to the net sheet we gave the seller when we put the deal together. When we finalize the deal, here's your net sheet, how much you're supposed to get back.
Yeah.
Now we do a settlement statement checklist that says, okay, this is how much you're actually getting back. And he's like, I want you to add something at the bottom of that to show the difference and then where it came from. So say they had repairs that weren't on there, or, their taxes were more than they thought, or they hadn't paid their well bill or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, so I put it on my list of things to do. Well, I use Todoist to track all my tasks, and my Todoist hour for working on those was at the end of the day. From like 3 to 4, I had Todoist tasks on my timeline. So it'd come up, I'd look at it, I'd be like, I can't do it. I'd bump it the next day. I did that for 2 weeks, kept bumping it. Cause every time I looked at it, I'm like, I can't even, how do I want this to look? I don't know. Do I want to subtract, add? What do I want to do? Finally, I'm like, damn it, Stephanie, why are you trying to do this when you're at your very worst? Like 3 o'clock, I'm done. My mind is mush. Don't talk to me at 3 o'clock. And so the next day I put it on my calendar, 9 o'clock in the morning. That thing was done in 10 minutes.
Yep.
10 minutes it took me to do that. After bumping it for 2 weeks, looking at it for at least 15 minutes a day for 2 weeks, and bumping it, added up. I probably wasted 4 hours on it.
Yeah.
And then got it done in 10 minutes.
It's such an interesting concept that I don't think a lot of people think about.
No.
But it comes from that, even, people say swallow the frog, in the morning.
Yep.
It's like, get your hard work out early.
Done.
So that book that you talk about, the green, the yellow, and the red, what was that one called?
At Your Best.
At Your Best. Okay.
Yeah. And zones are different for everybody. Some people function best from 7 to 9 p.m.
It's true.
I have a coaching client. She's best at 5 o'clock in the morning. I can't even see straight or spell my name at 5 o'clock in the morning. Don't talk to me at 5. I'm just barely.
I can maybe go to the gym, but I'm not thinking.
Exactly. That's a great time. That's a great time to do. That's an awesome thing to do in your red zone is work out, because you don't have to think about it. Your brain doesn't need the power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they said in that book, roughly like 4 to 5 hours, usually of your green zone.
Yep. When you're at your very, very best, everybody has a solid 4 to 5 hours. So then your yellow zone, like I know today when I get back, I've got some stuff I need to update in Monday.com, which is our software that we use for task management. That's easy. Total yellow zone activity, right? Are they in the group? Yep, check. Are they in the group? Yep, check. Are they, right? I don't have to think, but if I was like, okay, I need to calculate what percentage of the people, not good in the yellow.
Not the time to do that. That's interesting. That's really interesting. What's been reading so many books? What's been your favorite? What are your top 2 or 3 books?
Ooh, okay. Getting Things Done by David Allen's my number one always.
Okay.
That's my personal organization system. People are always like, how do you get so much crap done? Personal organization system. It is the way I function. So I capture everything that comes into my world, clarify what my next action is with, organize it in lists that I look at often, review it, and execute. That's it. That's he calls it his C core. I've lived by that methodology for 11 years.
It's called How to Get Things Done?
Getting Things Done. Getting
Okay.
Things Done by David Allen. That's my number one.
Okay.
Let's see. Number 2 is probably Come Up for Air by Nick Sonnenberg. He's actually, I just had a phone call with him yesterday. He's a super cool guy. He worked as an efficiency expert. His company does now. It's called Get Leverage. He works as an efficiency expert, but he was an efficiency expert for major. Like if you think of the 5 biggest companies in the world, he's done work with them.
Wow.
And he basically can almost guarantee you that you can save a day per week per employee through being efficient. And he talks about how to be super efficient. Like most people process information for speed of transfer, like get it off my plate as quick as possible, instead of the speed of retrieval, which means put it somewhere where everybody knows exactly where it is, so that if anybody needs to go get it, they don't have to ask somebody else. They can just get it and it's there.
Yeah.
So how do you organize everything in your business for speed of retrieval, not speed of transfer? So that one's probably my second favorite.
Why were you on a call with him?
He did a call for our Go Bundance champions.
Oh, cool.
And we've just stayed in touch.
Yeah.
And so I've talked to him like 3 or 4 times.
See, just getting in the right rooms again.
Getting in the right rooms.
Networks.
Getting in the right rooms. I know I went to the first, that deal I did with Aaron Amusha Steggy for Real Estate Rockstars. I got to meet Hal Elrod.
Wow.
I've got to meet David Voss. He wrote, what's the name of the book? He's a hostage negotiator.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't think of his book. I love his book.
I haven't read it, but I've seen his ads and stuff on like social media. Yeah.
Super cool. Jesse Itzler. I got to see Jesse Itzler in person.
Huge.
Yeah. Tom Bilyeu.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love Tom Bilyeu.
Yeah.
His podcast is my favorite. So.
Yeah. Some super cool guys. You just get in the right rooms and you get to meet all the coolest people.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
What's your number 3? Number 3 book?
Number 3 book is probably, oh gosh, I have so many favorites. Probably Leading with Questions.
Okay. Is that where your 5 whys came from?
Nope. Maybe.
Maybe.
It might have come from there. Leading with Questions is super awesome. It's just really, how do you get information by asking the right questions, and how do you lead people through questioning and not telling? Right? Question, don't tell. Question, don't tell. Ask the questions. And how do you frame them so that they're not judgmental? They're not accusatory. How do you ask those questions? Even like coaching agents, right? Why didn't you hit your numbers? That immediately is defensive.
Yep, guards
up. But if I said, hey, what would have to happen in order for you to hit your numbers next week? Their brain starts working. What would have to happen? I've used it on employees all the time. What would have to happen in order for you to be to work on time?
Yeah.
Right? What would have to change in your morning routine in order for you to be here by 8 o'clock?
Yeah.
Not, why are you late?
There's I can't remember the book. But it's basically, it talks about just wording and how you phrase things, how to say the right thing or something like that.
Yeah.
It's gotten referred to me. I haven't read it yet, but that's basically the same thing. Is like just phrasing things in a certain way can totally change how somebody takes in that wording.
Yep.
And so I love, that's a good one. I'll have to read that one too.
Yeah. There's one more you can read when you're dealing with employees. It's called The Coaching Habit.
Okay.
And literally, I use it all the time, but it's just a series of questions. When you're meeting with an employee one-on-one for anything, your question to them is, what's on your mind? And they will literally start talking
Blah.
about what's on their mind. Like, what is on your mind? Okay. What's the biggest issue in that for you? Right? When they start giving you the problem, what's the biggest? Okay. How can I help solve that problem? It's just an awesome way to coach people through a problem.
I love that. That's smart. I'll have to read that one too.
Yeah, I'll have a whole list.
Yeah, you have to get a whole list from you. Yeah.
When you get done, just text me. I'll text you the next one.
Next book. Yep.
Yeah, I'm listening to Unreasonable Hospitality right now, which is awesome.
Who's that one by? I think I've heard of that one.
Yeah, he has a weird long name. He was in the industry, in the hospitality industry, restaurants and stuff like that. Let's see. It is, I can tell you right now.
Is that kind of more like geared towards client experience and
Yep. So that is Unreasonable. Will Guidara.
Okay.
Guiarda.
I feel like I've heard that. That one's been referenced before too.
Yeah, that one's awesome.
I'll have to read
Super
that one.
cool.
And that's one thing that we try to really dial in is like, we want the client experience to be
amazing.
Because as a real estate team, it's like, one thing I've realized, and again, I haven't been into this very long, but in the last 3 years, like as you grow, as you scale really with any business, the cost of acquiring a client usually increases. So you've got to nail down your client, like repeat and referral business
100%,
or else it's going to be very difficult to scale.
And you'll see some of the teams and agents out there, if they have a very low repeat and referral business, their profit is
non-existent
because they have to dump continuous flow of money into leads.
Yep.
At AHG, we were running like a 60% repeat and referral. We had a very high, which is free.
Yeah.
Those are free. I mean, the cost of the 4 events a year that we did.
Yep.
Right. We do 4 events to just really love on the clients and keep them coming back.
Yep.
And then just provide them with amazing service. And they will just, Mike did like 130 transactions, 99.99% of them. We only gave him like 1 or 2 team leads where we're like, oh, we got to send in the big gun.
Yeah.
Send in Mike. We need him to nail this one. No one else can do it. All of it repeat and referral business.
Yep.
The man didn't spend a dime on leads.
Yeah. And that's what we're trying to like implement for our team. And that's really,
they're so much easier to close too.
Yeah.
They're so much easier to work with. You have a relationship. They trust you.
Yeah. You're not trying to win them over on the appointment. They already trust you. And those are the funnest clients to work with. The ones that already know, like, and trust you.
Yep.
And so it's such a big push. All of our personal business comes from it. Like all the team leads go to the team. But the goal is to, help those agents develop the right systems and processes for client retention.
Yep.
So that they can also just get that repeat and referral business. It's been fun to see new agents that are, after about a year, start to see some of that referral business come in. And then they're like, wow, like they just referred me to their aunt or their, I'm like, yes, that's what we want. That's like,
that's how it works.
And they're like, we love working with those clients. I'm like, yeah.
That's how my brother is. You know, he's with AAG. He moved here from Sacramento. He didn't know a person, not one person in the world.
Yeah.
And he's like got repeat. He's got listings from people that bought last year and are selling. They got to Idaho and they're like, wait, what? It snows?
Yeah.
And they're like, can we go back?
Yeah. We've run into that a lot too.
Yeah.
People that have moved here in the last 2 years and they're like, yeah, we want to sell. We're going to go back to California.
Yeah, we can't do the snow.
Yeah.
Especially not this last winter. I think that was Idaho's way of saying, okay, you guys want to live here. This
is what it's like. Yeah, exactly. For what's some like words of advice? Anybody looking to like start a business, what would you advise somebody?
That it's always, everything you're trying to do has been done before. Do not try and create it from scratch. Go find people doing it at a high level and repeat what they've done. Everybody thinks they're the smartest person. I'm going to do it different. What does every real estate team look like? They're 90% the same.
Yeah.
Because they're just like, okay, this is the model. This is how you do it. I'm going to go build it. They tweak things to make them slightly different, but the basics of the company are the same.
Yeah.
So don't try and recreate the wheel. Go find someone who's doing whatever it is you want to do at a high level and say, hey, can I shadow you? Can I follow you? Will you mentor me?
Yep.
That's my advice. Don't try and recreate the wheel. It's so much harder.
Yeah. Get a coach, get a mentor.
100%. Get a coach or a mentor.
Pay to be in the right rooms.
Yep.
Like, cause I think that's
absolutely matters who you surround yourself with.
Changing. Yeah. What's anything that you're excited about doing right now? Like anything that you're working on that you're like,
I'm writing a kid's book. It should be coming out pretty quick. Yeah.
What is that? What is it about?
Wendell the porcupine. I had a porcupine show up on my front porch last year. And I think we live all the way at the very top of Loma, like the very highest house up there. And it is so freaking windy. So for all you people that don't like wind, it's not the place to
be up there.
Yeah. So my yard was literally the only lawn you could see in the winter because the wind blows so hard it blew all the snow off the actual grass. You could see my grass all winter, even though the piles in front of the road were 12 feet tall.
Yeah, you couldn't drive anywhere, but you could see the grass.
So this porcupine shows up out of the blue, and we're like, there is a porcupine on our front porch. Well, we started like experimenting with different foods. At first, he was just eating the grass. Well, we found out he liked kale. He likes raspberries. He likes blackberries. He likes strawberries. So we were feeding him. He would show up every night. We had a box on the front porch. Christy Carlquist, you know Christy? She named him Wendell. So that's his name. And then and then in March, he just disappeared. Like all the snow was melted. I'm sure wherever he lived had food. So he just didn't come back. I'm telling myself that because if he got hit by a car, I'll die because I love Wendell. So I was like, I should write a children's book about it. So Haley and I
are writing a children's book.
It's already I'm just waiting on the final draft before it's published.
Really?
Yeah, Wendell
that is
Wendell
awesome.
The lonely porcupine.
Well, we'll buy a copy because we can read it to our daughter.
Yeah. Super good, cute story. Yep.
That's cool. How do you find time to do that with everything else you got going on?
Yeah, that's like an 11 p.m. definite red zone. It took about, actually, I wrote it and then I gave it to Haley. I'm like, okay, add your stuff because Haley's hilarious.
Yeah.
She's super funny and she's like,
so good with wording.
With wording. She added, that Wendell's brothers and sisters, because that's the theme behind the story, is that he got lost from his family. She added that his brothers and sisters told him to stay away from humans because they make hairbrushes out of porcupines and, just silly stuff. So she Haleyized it. And then, we've got someone illustrating it for us. So it was just one of those things. One Saturday, I'm like, I'm going to write a book. So
that's crazy.
Just kind of wrote the story, worked on it for a couple hours, sent it to Haley, said, do your spin. I'll split the profits with you once I pay back the cost to publish it. And she's like, okay.
That's crazy. Yeah. How's that experience been? Going through that publishing process?
It's been okay.
Writing a book.
Yeah.
Is it hard? Is it harder than?
On a children's book, I would say no, but I'm also trying to write an actual book.
Oh, really?
Matt and I are like, we should write a book and then use the book as a funnel for operations training to do more like, how do you be the best executive assistant ever? Because no one really ever trains people how to do that.
Yeah.
That came from a member. One of the members called me and was like, hey, how do I get an awesome ops boss like you? What training can I put them through? I'm like, I don't even know what to direct them to. There's really not like, hey, be an awesome ops boss training. We have Be a Boss 10 Secrets of a Mega EA, but that's real estate focused, you know?
Yeah.
And he's like, you should start one. And I was like, son of a gun, you know what? I should. So I talked to Matt and he's like, let's do it.
Wow. That's cool. You look at, do you follow like Alex Hormozy or?
Yeah.
So it's like what he's done with his model is so interesting. Like his $100 million leads, and now he's coming out with his new, or his $100 million offer. And now he's coming out with his $100 million leads, but his book is really just a funnel to get him to, you know, his acquisition.com. Where he can, you know, take ownership in companies and help advise. But that's like providing free content or knowledge. Is such a good gateway to get people interested
100%.
Into anything that you want to do. So I think that's a great idea to do a book, do that, and then funnel right into your coaching business. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, that's my area of expertise. I could talk about operation systems, being an awesome assistant, all those things all day long, every day in my red zone.
Yeah.
Because that's just my love is
what
operations.
You love to do.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yep.
And you've been talking on stages, like you enjoy that side of.
I've been on stage at KW Family Reunion like 3 or 4 years on panels. And then of course I train all over the country and people ask me to do, I've done offsites for teams where they're doing their annual offsite and I'll come and facilitate the offsite for them. So
really
all sorts of stuff like that.
That's super cool. Looking back like 5 years ago, did you ever think you'd be where you're at right now?
No.
What did you plan? What was your plan back then?
To work until I retired.
Yeah. Now what's changed? Now what's your plan?
I want to work about 7 or 8 more years, and I want to be able to retire comfortably with income from horizontal income.
Okay.
Just purely horizontal income. Our TC business is horizontal income for me. I built all the systems. I've got someone running it. That is horizontal income for me. The book will be horizontal income once it's published. So I just want horizontal income streams where I don't have to get up every morning and go to work.
So horizontal is like basically saying not an active income stream, but
vertical is it depends on me to make it happen.
Okay.
The horizontal is I did something and now it's happening.
Generating. Interesting. Yeah.
It's one of the pillars of Go Bundance is horizontal income.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yep. So there's 6 pillars in Go Bundance that those guys live by, and one of them is horizontal income. Most of them are no longer a W-2. If they were, they're out, and they are living off of maximizing that horizontal income.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna have to talk to you more about Go Bundance and what it is.
It's pretty cool.
Interesting.
It's pretty cool.
What's your goal? Like, do you have do you do like investments at all with real estate?
I'm about to. My husband. Unfortunately, my husband's mom passed away in January. She lived in California.
Okay.
Northern California. Bought the house in 1968. It's a teardown. She was kind of a hoarder, like the show hoarders. That was her house. Yeah. So it took 4 dumpsters to get everything out of the house. She just, when you have a mental illness, it was just normal to her. We had no idea it was that bad.
Wow.
She had lost 2 adult children. It's terrible to lose a child, and it just made her. So she passed away in January. We put the house on the market for $999. There's 4 siblings. 2 are passed away, but they have kids. So 4 siblings. Put on the market for $999. Got 25 offers. It sold for $1.25 million.
Wow.
And it just closed last week, but we have to finish going through probate in California. So once we get our portion of that, we will buy a winter home for us so we can go somewhere during the winter that's not here. And then we'll Airbnb it the rest of the time. So it'll be our first investment. And then I hope it's the first of many.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, congrats. Yeah. Where's that place that you want to
Probably
be?
Vegas, just because that's where we go all the time, and it's a great Airbnb market. So we want to we want to transition, run a team in Arizona at some point. Yeah.
My wife hates the winters here.
It sucks. Last winter almost killed me. I was like, why do we live here again? We both work at home. Why do we live here?
Yeah. Well, especially it's like building a business. What I've learned too is like, you got to build a business around the life that you want.
Yeah.
A lot of people build the business and the business just runs them.
Yep.
And
They build their life around the business they own, and then they're a slave to the business.
It's like if you're going to take the risk of being an entrepreneur and being a business owner, build it around the life that you want to live.
Yep.
So like our thing is like, we want to get down there. She told me last winter, she's like, this is my last full winter here, so you better figure it out.
Yep.
I'm like, all right, cool.
I just told my coaching client today on the phone, he's one that's a real estate agent. I said, look, what I need you to do this week, your homework is I need you to tell me what, the 80-20 rule. Everybody tries to figure out their top 20. I'm like, I need you to figure out the top 20 for your life. Mm-hmm. Your life. Forget business. The 80% of your life fits into the business. Like that's everything else. I want you to go say, okay, I need 1 week vacation per quarter every year. I have to spend this much time with my kids. I need this. Yep. That's your 20%. Now take the 80%, which is everything else. Now what's your 20% of business? But you got to be operating off 2. And the top 20% for your life is number 1, because if you can't get that done, nothing else matters. And you can't show up in business like you need to show up because you're not your best self.
100%. I agree with that. I recently just went through this funk where we just been growing and there's a lot of opportunities coming in.
Chaos.
So you're just like, you put everything else on the back burner. And I'm like, I need to get back into an early morning routine, going to the gym. Cause if I'm not filling my own cup,
you got nothing to give.
Yeah. I'm going to show up here and it's not going to be the same energy. It's not going to be the same vibe.
Yep.
So you've got to figure out what's important to you and build your business and your schedule around that.
Yep.
And that's how you got to figure out. But everybody figures out like, hey,
business, my top 20% for business. And then they try and fit their little rocks of their stuff in between all the business stuff. And it gets pushed to the bottom. It's always going to be the one that gets, don't need to do it.
Oh yeah. I got a showing appointment for that. So we'll just move that and I won't do it. I'll just do it tomorrow.
It's, Stephen Covey's 4 quadrants: urgent and important, not urgent and important. And everybody works out of quadrant 1, which is urgent and important. And that's no way to live. Yep. You should be working on quadrant 2. Anything left undone in quadrant 2 for too long, which is not urgent, but important. Yep. Anything left there for too long ends up in quadrant 1, right? Your health isn't urgent and important until you weigh 600 pounds and you're having a heart attack or like you're in the hospital because you just are in terrible health. Then all of a sudden it becomes urgent and everybody ignores that quadrant. If you can figure out how to work in that quadrant, nothing ever ends up in the one where it's like, okay, crap, now it's an emergency.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very true. Yeah. It's hard to get there. Well, I know we're going long here. This is, but I got so many questions but we'll end it here. But when you're looking at companies, is there like an org chart or order of importance on hiring that you see?
Well, I would go back to the pyramid, right? Sales first. Sales, you got to have the sales to support. It's a big risk to bring on someone into your business. If you're a young company and you're just like, that is a huge risk. That person needs to be able to 3x their salary. So if you're going to pay an operations person $50,000, they need to create $150,000 in revenue for the company. Yep. Through systems and processes and all those things. They got to 3x it to make it worth it. So that's really what you need to look at is like, at what point can I make an investment into someone, a person, invest in a who that can give me a return on the who. Yeah. So, I mean, I always 3x'd my salary, whether it was bringing deals in. I mean, I listed and sold a $1.6 million apartment complex. And of course the team gets the split on that. Yeah. We created systems for reviews so that we had, a bazillion Zillow reviews. We had more than 3 times the next closest. That was all through systems that we built. And of course you get business from reviews because people Google you or look on Facebook. So any operations person should be doing 3x their salary. And that's what a business needs to look at. Can I afford to make this investment? And then how do I hold them accountable for the investment I made? What metrics do I measure them by to make sure they're 3xing their salary?
For you to understand that though, as an employee is impressive. Like, you know what I mean? Because most employees aren't going to look at like, oh, I should go in and 3x my salary because they're like, well, if I'm making the company more money, like then I should just get paid more. You know what I mean? So it's like, how do you shift that mindset or framework?
I don't know. I almost think it's inherent. I've just always thought that way. I don't know how to teach someone how to not be selfish or me first. Yeah. And I mean, if you ask my husband, he would say I'm a selfish person, but I guess probably not when it comes to business. I get it because I've been it. Yeah. Right. I get it because I've been a business owner. So I understand it.
Yeah. And I think that's probably the biggest thing is you understand business and how it works. Most people just think like the business makes money and I need to make money.
You need to pay me more.
Yeah. Versus like, I know how business works. For me to get paid more, I need to help the business make more money.
Yeah.
Because it's all just revenue or profit based.
Yeah.
Like,
and everybody should have a number. Everybody should have a metric. Everybody should be held accountable to the metric. And if you hit the metric, you will be rewarded for hitting the metric, period.
Yeah. Love that. Last question.
Okay. That's what you said last time.
I know this one. I forgot because actually my ops manager asked me to ask this question.
Oh, okay.
So
this is from an ops person.
Yeah.
All right.
From your like running a real estate team, you can have the best operations and systems. How do you get people to
buy in?
Yes.
Get that question all the time.
People to buy into the operations and systems?
It's always got to be. I teach this in my class. Systems are sexy. You should send her through. And I'm teaching a remote one September 7th and 8th, I think. It's on Ops Boss Coaching. But
I'll tell her.
To get buy-in, honestly, first of all, it's got to be about what's in it for them, right? We're going to do this, and guess what you're going to gain when we do this? When we decided to switch to Brivity, it was a big deal. We're like blowing up all the systems, and we're like trying to get agents to buy into this.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, here's all the benefits of why it's going to help you in your business. So it can never be about, I love people more than I love any system I built, period. Yeah. And so I always tell people, look, if you can't follow the system, let's figure out why. What's prohibiting you, and what can I fix so that it's easier for you to follow the system? And if you just can't, then let's figure out a workaround. Mike Hicks, too busy to follow any system, right? So the answer was, let's hire Mike an assistant that will follow the system for him. Because I can't put the burden on the operations team that they do it this way for everybody else, but they do it this way for Mike. That's not scalable. So we say, okay, if Mike can't follow the system, which he can, he's busy, he works 9 million hours a week and he's selling a gazillion homes, then we'll hire an assistant, and she'll take all of Mike's stuff, get it in the system so that it can get passed off to the ops team in pristine form. So they have a choice. They can follow the system, and I'll make the system as easy as possible, right? There's a video I put in my class, and it's hilarious. Have you ever seen the guy who does he does all these tricks. So he jumps on a balance beam and he's bouncing a tennis ball across it, and then he rolls a ball across it. I feel like that's how people build systems, and then they're pissed off when their agents don't use them. I'm like, look what you just asked them to do. Yeah. Right? It's got to be simple. Seamless. It's got to give a benefit to the person using the system. The end user that's using it has to be like, I want to use this because I get this. At AHG, you want a CMA? You fill out a jot form. You got a contract? You fill out a jot form. It's all I'm asking you to do. Just fill out the jot. We'll take care of everything else. Because
that's the thing is your systems from a team, they have to benefit the agent, because you're really working for the agent, because the agents drive sales.
Yep, sales exactly. On the bottom.
So agents drive the sales. So you're trying to help them as much as possible. But I like the fact that you said you can't, the busy agents that can't follow the system, you can't put the burden on the ops team to treat them any different.
No, because it's just not scalable. I can't teach someone, okay, do it this way sometimes and then this way other times. It's got to be the same, right? And the messaging always to the client needs to be the same. Hey, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to go back to the office. I'm going to drop this packet off. We just signed listing paperwork. My operations person's going to call you within an hour. She's going to get you set up for staging. And he has to know saying that. That's going to happen every time. And the only way to do that is airtight systems, and everybody's got to follow the same system. If he doesn't turn in the jot form, she has no idea she's supposed to call. Yeah.
And I think, and that's good. That's good for me to hear, because we have that yin name to my ops manager. It's like, well, they're not doing this. I'm like, well, then how do we just do this for them?
Why aren't they doing it?
Yeah.
Is it too hard?
Ask the question.
Do they not understand? Is it too convoluted? Are we asking them to do too much? Are they out in the field and they can't do it? Mine had jot forms on their phone. We just bookmarked it on the phone. So literally they get in their car, they can hit boom, fill out the jot, they're done.
Yeah. Smart. Yeah.
I don't want to ask them anything that I can find the answer to somewhere else, right? I don't want to ask them the price. It's on the contract.
Yep.
Don't put it on the jot form.
Yeah.
It's already there.
Yeah.
I don't need to ask them something I can get somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing, is you got to make it as seamless as possible, as fluid as possible.
Yeah.
For all the systems.
Yep.
I love that. We're definitely gonna have to plug her into your systems are sexy.
Systems are sexy
training.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. We'll have to plug into that. So where can people? Are you big on social media at all?
Yep.
Where can people find you?
Stephanie Perry Brackett on Facebook, at Steph Brackett 1, I think, on Insta. I don't use Insta. I just post on Facebook and it goes over there. I've got a LinkedIn profile, and then of course opsbosscoaching.com. You can go there.
Okay. Stephanie Brackett on most of y'all platforms, Stephanie Brackett 1. Her Facebook page is where that's where I see a lot of your ops boss.
Yeah, because Christy posts and tags me on it all the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to connect with her, are you taking on new clients for ops?
I'm pretty full, but it depends on the client. Like if I found someone where like, man, I could really help them.
Yeah.
I'll take them.
Okay. Yeah. We'll reach out to her if you guys are looking for an ops boss or coaching with ops boss. And yeah, I just want to say thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
I know you're busy, so I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this. And hopefully you guys are able to find some golden nuggets in there because it's a lot of great information that you've shared. So, okay, until next time, we'll catch you guys later.
Don't listen to people who lose or you'll do the same. Stop talking to people who don't give a what you saying. Stop spending your money on weed, go hop on a plane. Stop pointing the finger and start taking some of the blame. Let me put you on game. Control your emotions, most of the time it's really not worth it. Don't be ashamed and beat yourself up for not being perfect.